We do have a gold and silver program, which Jeff will explain to you afterwards. Whatever you want to do with how you want to invest is okay. But that's the thesis. That's my basic thesis on what I want to tell you today. That's it. Thank you. And now those famous questions and answers. I know nobody has any questions.
I have not a question, but I have a little statement. Ronnie is a tennis buddy of mine for a number of years, and after tennis you sit, you schmooze, and so 3, 4, 5 years ago, he came over to my house and we sat up for a couple of margaritas, and he kind of explained, not in that detail, but we philosophized about it, and I said, Ronnie, I like what I hear, and I invested a minimal amount 4 or 5 years ago, something,
Yeah,
3,
about
4 years,
4 to
something
5.
like that.
Yeah, sure.
And I can tell you all, he made me a small fortune, and I'm not bragging, that's the truth, and I want you all to know.
Thank you. Who has questions?
Ron,
Sure.
Would the converse hold true that if the government, although unlikely, gets their spending under control, that the debt would go down and the price of gold would go down?
Probably that would happen if they could get their spending under control.
It's a big
Well, I just think, yes, if you eventually seriously could stop this runaway debt structure and you could start reducing it, then I think that metals and other things would go down. The problem I see is, I don't see how it's possible. Going back to the political situation we're in, you don't stay in office unless you give people things for nothing. And this is a very subtle thing. The politician can say, oh, where are we going to get that extra billion? He doesn't care. He just knows, oh, they print it. And so nobody sort of realistically says, gee, that's really corroding our country. That's making us head to bankruptcy. Nobody feels it. Oh, debt is debt. We can handle it. So he can get away with it. No, we don't have 10 million people screaming, stop the debt. we have some people, but you don't have it like, you got to stop this, you're bankrupting us. So the politician is just going to go down this road, and there's a whole bunch that try and curb it some, but they're not going to be able to stop it.
In your opinion, at some level, does it become unsustainable?
Absolutely, 100%. It's going to be unsustainable. I had originally, now this is just how far the mind's eye can see, and it's a guesstimate. I originally thought 5, 10 years ago that I thought at 25 trillion, the wheels would come off and we would collapse under our own weight. I have a feeling it's going to be much higher than that and much longer. And I think, and I'm guessing more like 50 trillion or 75 trillion. Well, I'm just saying, all you got, look at where we're heading. What's the big deal? If you said 10 years ago at 2 trillion, we're going to be at 14 trillion, you go, oh, it can't be. So if I say at 14 trillion, you're going to be at 50 trillion, that's a triple. What's the big deal, 50 trillion? But that means that our currency becomes like the Mexican peso, just about worthless. And by the way, I don't even think the boom has started in commodities. I think the next 15 years is going to take your head off, what I see. Between the double thing of interest rates going up and this escalating beyond control, I just see an unbelievable boom coming. And so my guess was 25, but I'm saying over 50 trillion, I think, before. Well, it's just going to implode on its own. You just won't be able to keep printing money. And what's going to happen is China's going to say, or all the countries are going to say, oh, that's what I left this out. This is being held down. But at one point, as we keep printing more and more debt, China and all the other countries will say, we're not loaning you money at 2% anymore. You print money, we want 4 or 5%. And a few years later, they're going to say, we want 10% because we keep printing. You got to be a schnook to keep taking our debt at 2%.
Is this exactly the issue that Greece is facing now, but on a smaller scale?
Much smaller scale. And you know what the frightening part of Greece is? Look what happened when the politicians try to bring a little austerity. A little. And you think our politicians are going to stop this giveaway today? $2 trillion for Medicare, medical things, and all the other things they put money for. Yeah, Greece is a microcosm of the whole thing that we're going to experience in time. But it's not. This is not a pretty picture, and I have no answer. I don't see an answer to it, because I think if you could literally balance your budget today, and we take in, I don't know, $3 trillion a year, and we spend $3 trillion instead of 5 what we're going to spend, I think our economy would collapse without that extra couple of trillion. That's what I think would happen. Immediately, everything would go down. So that's what I see. And all I can do is say, here's where we are, here's where I think we're going, and the best recommendation I have of where to invest your money to somehow offset what I see coming.
Speaks for emerging markets though too, right? Sorry.
Well, if you want to stay in stocks, obviously the Asian emerging markets are growing by leaps and bounds, and if stocks go up, that's where I'd want to have my money, in those companies.
I was actually referring more to the Latin American side, which are very heavy commodity producers.
Oh, well, yeah, I don't know that much. I mean, I know that maybe they're good too, If those natural resources would spur their economy on, that would be good too.
Peru with a lot of gold and
Yeah, but see,
silver.
I prefer, when you talk like that, I prefer to be right in the metal itself, because it has a direct one-to-one relationship. You can almost measure the one-to-one relationship as you see it go up. When you talk about natural resources and then the pass-through, well, how's that represent, both the company stock or the country? I don't know how much it gets diluted, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Yes.
A while back, Bernanke prophesied that it was a possibility that the government would default on foreign debt. What's your take on whether that might happen and what would the consequences be?
Our government would default on foreign debt?
Yes.
What do you mean, debt we own of other countries?
Debt we owe to, say, China and India and so forth.